I'm really excited to be here. I'm sorry that I missed the whole session. I would have loved to have been here all day, but here we are. So, my name's Jody Adams, and I'm going to tell you my age only because it matters to the timeline. I just turned 60. Thank you. I'm a chef and a restaurant owner, as you know, but I'm also a mother, a wife, a cyclist, and I've been dedicated to working on anti-hunger issues for forever. I've had a very busy year this year. In the last 12 months with my partners, I've opened one full-service Mediterranean seafood restaurant called Porto. It's next to Saks in the Back Bay. And I've opened two Saloniki, the name of the restaurant. They're Greek quick-serve sandwich shops. One is near Fenway and one is in Central Square. And I closed Rialto, which was my iconic 22-year-old Italian restaurant in the summer, which was bittersweet. We also have, my partners and I have a 6-year-old restaurant called Trade. It's a casual Mediterranean restaurant with a lively bar on the Greenway near South Station. So I was asked to talk a little bit about being a woman and a chef, so I'm going to get that one out of the way. I've been asked that for so many years. I have it down pat. I can do it like that. It was a lot of work, no doubt about that, and it continues to be. At times it was hard. I faced obstacles. I sacrificed time with family and friends. I went back to work 3 weeks after my first child was born, 5 weeks after my second child was born. The press overlooked me at times. Once there was a story that was being written about Boston chefs in the New York Times, and when the photographer went around to take pictures, he took pictures of my food, and then he was wrapping up, and I said, "Don't you want to take a picture of me?" And he said, "Oh, no, I already have a picture of a woman." So he, of course, had pictures of 5 male chefs, but he only needed one of a woman. I've been overlooked by chefs. I was once pushed out of the way by a famous New York chef in a big photo shoot. I was standing in the front row, and he just pushed me out of the way. So, I'm not alone in all of this, but I put my head down, worked my butt off, developed a Mediterranean cooking style, and stuck to it. I learned to advocate for myself. I was vocal about my beliefs, supported other women, held conferences, mentored young women, and I've never stopped. It's not something we can ever stop doing. We can't take anything for granted. We need to keep pushing forward. It will never be a greased slide. I'm going to see if I feel like I'm not looking at anybody. How's that? Okay. Along the way, I've had the support of my amazing husband, my partners, the community, and my staff. I'm proud of all my accomplishments, the culinary contribution I've made over the years, my restaurants, my participation in the communities through which I move, my work with nonprofits, the number of people I've mentored, trained, and employed over the years. However, I didn't always feel this way. When my kids were young and life was chaotic, if asked how I measured success, I would say the fewest number of people pissed off at me at one time. Now my children, who are 21 and 27, tell me that I'm their role model. How cool is that? So that's the woman thing. I'm going to go back to how I started, where I started, and why, and bring you to where I am today. And I promise we're not going to be here for hours. I established a home in the world of food 30 years ago when, 2 years out of college, I was on my way to nursing school. I needed a part-time job, and I found myself behind the counter of a gourmet food store. And I felt like, oh my God, I'm home. This is where I'm supposed to be. I loved food. In high school, I'd had a garden. I'd had lots of opportunities to travel, so I'd cooked in kitchens in Guatemala, learned how to make couscous in Morocco. I'd been in France and Spain, where I visited the obligatory museums and churches, but really, when I let go, I went to markets and gathered up artichokes and arugula and wanted to cook them. I used to carry them around in bags because I could never find a kitchen. I was living in youth hostels, but I had them. Yet it never occurred to me that I would find a profession in food. It just wasn't a thing. There weren't celebrity chefs and reality cooking shows, and there were very few women leading restaurant kitchens. However, there was Julia Child, there was Alice Waters, and there was Lydia Shire, and a few others, and I could see them, and I thought I could be them. So I ditched nursing, thank God, and found a job in a restaurant. It was the mid-'80s. It was a fine dining, white tablecloth kind of time with lots of pharmaceutical money that we now miss, right, to fuel it, and there weren't a whole lot of restaurants like it in Boston. We worked with sweetbreads and brains and black trumpet mushrooms, squab, baby lamb, Norwegian farm salmon, and lots of foie gras. By the way, by the late 90s, brains were off the table because of mad cow disease, and the sweetbreads went with them because everybody was nervous. And baby lamb, farm salmon, and foie gras had been brought into question. So the waiters, or waitrons as they like to call themselves, took their money home in cash tips. As cooks, we worked 2 or 3 hours off the clock because we were passionate and driven. Few independent restaurants offered health insurance. People weren't always asked about their papers, but things had started to shift. The chef of the restaurant was a woman, Lydia Shire, and 3 of the 6 line cooks were women. We cooked seasonally. We did buy from some farms, and we explored regional European, Asian, and Indian cuisines using classic French techniques. The food was creative and familiar at the same time. By the 90s, fine dining had morphed to include bistros, Asian and Italian restaurants, and fusion cuisine. Do you remember that? Michael, you remember fusion cuisine? We called it confusion cuisine because it was just taking all kinds of stuff and putting it into a bag, mixing it up, and throwing it onto a plate. Rialto opened in 1994, an Italian restaurant. Rules for technique and flavor combinations were breaking, and California cuisine was taking us by storm. With it came a focus on locally grown seasonal food and the notion of sustainability. Many of us were buying from farmers, and there was a desire to organize and work more effectively with them. We wanted to know where our food came from. We were concerned about soil and fisheries and water, and we were worried about hunger and equity in our food system. We wanted to make a difference. In 1992, I say 1992, but I think it was later than that. I was do you remember where the Boston chapter started? Chefs Collaborative?
No,
what?
But the collaborative started
94. That was when the charter was written. So somewhere in the early to mid-90s, I was a co-founder of the Boston chapter of Chefs Collaborative 2000, which sounds like a long time ago, 2000, doesn't it? Our mission was simple but lofty: to advance sustainable food choices for the next century, which is where we are today, in the next century. Our action to support local farmers and to educate our staff and the public about sustainable food. We got to know the farmers and the fishermen. We hosted meetings with them to figure out how to best work together. We organized fundraisers and summits to support our work. We figured out how to bring technology, which at the time were landlines and faxes, to the process. We were really excited about that. We put their names on our menus. We celebrated them and their products at special farm dinners in our restaurants. And we learned the rhythm of their working lives. If a girlfriend of a farmer wanted to go to the beach on a Saturday in August, we didn't get tomatoes. They pulled their pot smoke-filled trucks up to the back of our restaurants, and we shopped for lemon cucumbers, French breakfast radishes, white eggplants, candy cane beets. It was about how to get their hand-grown food from the dirt into our kitchen and to mess with it as little as possible. Hand in hand with conversations about sustainable food was one about sustainable diet. Old Ways, a food and nutrition education organization, the Harvard School of Public Health, and the European Office of the World Health Organization introduced the classic Mediterranean diet in 1993 at a conference in Cambridge, Massachusetts. That's right here, right? Along with, they also had a Mediterranean diet pyramid. I don't know if you remember it, but there was definitely a wine glass in there and some exercise, and grains were at the base. We were listening and started to look at how what we eat has an impact on the environment and on the body. Chefs Collaborative 2000 charter, called Food for Life, which was released in 1994, had 8 or 9 principles. The 7th one was to support the healthy traditional diets of many cultures the healthy traditional diets of many cultures offer abundant evidence that fruits, vegetables, beans, bread, and grains are the foundation of good diets. And if you remember before that, it was dairy and meat. Dairy and meat were the foundation. We questioned animal protein as the be-all, end-all for the center of the plate and started inching more vegetables onto the plate. Not everybody was as excited as we were, that we had customers that expected at least 6 to 8 ounces, if not more, of animal protein on the plate. Since Rialto was Italian, I was able to explain the reason behind my menu changes. I became known for interesting, bold, fresh flavors using lots of herbs, citrus, olives, garlic, the foundation of the Mediterranean cuisine. But when I closed Rialto, 2 of the classics really told the story of what was going on then, and that was that the 2 classics were a 11-ounce sirloin and half a duck. So they were big protein portions. It's taken almost 2 decades, but vegetables now are the stars. These days, everyone is working and lifestyles are changing. Restaurants like Trade, Porto, and Saloniki have become part of people's everyday lives. Our guests aren't interested in long, rich, fancy meals. They want fun, casual experiences that don't break the bank. They're into small plates, sharing, and grain bowls. Lots and lots of grain bowls. They want lots of fish and vegetables with the occasional steak or burger. They want to know where their food comes from. They want to know that they can eat it without worrying about what's in it for health and or allergy reasons. So we need to be transparent and trusted. Today, our restaurants are Mediterranean. Our food is sourced locally as much as possible, and we use a ton of those vegetables, grains, olive oil, and herbs. We are true to the mission of the Chefs Collaborative 2000 statement, which is to advance sustainable food choices for the next century. And when I went back to read that, I was really struck that we actually have stayed on course. My partners and I are committed not just to sustainability in terms of how we source the food and the composition of the plates we put on our tables, but how the environment we create for the people who work for us affects them, the people who make our businesses run. Unlike the wild, wild west of the past, our servers receive paychecks. We pay our cooks for every hour they work. We offer health insurance. We employ only people with documents. Today, the restaurant industry is exploding. Eating is one of the few things you can't do virtually yet, although you can give a lecture, you can attend a course. There are enormous pressures on owners to compete for staff. We're putting in place clear professional pathways at Saloniki for our staff, and recently we initiated an open book management program at Trade to educate the team about how the business runs by providing transparency about the nitty-gritty of the business and the financials. So it's going to be completely open. I'm almost finished. I'm optimistic that healthy quality food will continue to make its way down through the restaurant food chain, as we have seen from fine dining white tablecloth restaurants like Rialto to casual Trade in Porto. My partners, John Mendes and Eric Papachristos, saw an opening in the fast casual quick serve market for our kind of food. So we opened Saloniki. It's been a huge success, lines out the door with regulars coming back several times a week. It's healthy, but we don't use those words. Healthy is death to a restaurant. I believe I'm the only celebrity chef in Boston to have done this, a quick-serve restaurant. At first, I was skeptical. Who, me, James Beard award-winning chef Jody Adams, a sandwich shop? But then I said, oh, what the hell? It's a way to bring Mediterranean food to a much larger group of people and just have fun. Through my 30 years of cooking, I haven't been immune to the temptation of trends. But I got into the business because I love food and Mediterranean traditions. And when I've started to muse about Japanese flavors, Indian spices, or modernist techniques, thankfully there's always someone who's brought me back to remind me of who I am. Last week, my friend Chef Gabriel Hamilton wrote a piece in the New York Times that you may have read that addresses this tension called The Wonder of Three Ingredients: radish, butter, salt, a dish she's been serving for 17 years at her restaurant, Prune. It's classic French. So simple, it can't really be a recipe, but so perfect, it needs the formality of a recipe so nobody messes with it. She talked about how there's no place to hide with a recipe like this. It doesn't require the demonstration of innovative cooking skills or the exploration of exotic flavor pairings. Rather, it requires the discipline to use the best and freshest ingredients you can get. Treat them with respect and stick to your guns about the integrity of the dish. She says, it's about what you don't do. And she also said this, quote, staying faithful to a dish for 17 years through the epoch of the nose to tail and the era of the siphon and the fad of edible dirt, the trends of carrot top pesto, smoked yogurt, unripened green blueberries and strawberries, vegetable butchers, orange wine, the house-made, the fermented, and the charred. The raw, the induction burner, the dehydrator, the pop-up run out of the back of a cell phone store restaurant, the denim aprons and the sideburns, I think she forgot, the tattoos. It can feel like a commitment to a marriage. So staying faithful to a dish for 17 years can feel like a commitment to a marriage. A marriage in that when you start chafing at restrictions, and this is me, when you start chafing at restrictions and want to break loose and go off and have an affair, you have to have an anchor to return to, your commitment to a style of cooking. Things are always changing. It's important to be open and flexible, but you also have to be true to your vision. From many perspectives, there have been huge gains in the general public's knowledge and practice of healthy and sustainable diet and cooking. It's evident in the media, TV cooking shows, quality of all levels of restaurants, kid cooking shows, farmers markets, etc. I like to believe that these changes are in part the direct result of the work that we as chefs have been doing over the last 30 years. At the same time, hunger, obesity, environmental damage, and a food shortage 30 years from now are on the other side of that perspective. These are issues that need more money, more attention, and more commitment. Commitment to healthy school lunches and school breakfasts for all kids, available, affordable, fresh foods in underserved neighborhoods, action against damaging policies on the environment, and solutions for how we're going to feed everyone in 2050. In our world of restaurants and chefs, there are chefs and organizations like Share Our Strength, the Greater Boston Food Bank, and Chefs Collaborative that have been working on these issues for years, as well as many other heroes in our communities. Know them, support them, and give. But making significant changes in these areas take international recognition, collaboration, and commitment. So in closing, when we started Chefs Collaborative in 2000, we were idealistic that we were doing the right thing, but couldn't envision what that future looked like. After a decade or so, I lost faith that we could really change things and dropped out of the organization. The trendy focus in kitchens seemed to be on crazy manipulations of food through scientific methods, aka Fran Adria, which ultimately, by the way, is processed food. It flew in the face of what we'd worked for, and the public, or should I say the press, was really going for it. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have avant-garde cuisine, and I think we absolutely should, but that's not what people eat day to day. Today, the spotlight is shining on farmers again, on real food, on vegetables, on whole grains, simple, clean, favorable food. We're moving forward. Yes. Thank you.